Well, you clicked on this video knowing the topic, so I'll give you the short answer by saying that there's been a disconnect between what Left 4 Dead 2 players wanted from a spiritual successor of one of their favorite games and what they got. More specifically, while the player base expected a game that would have some differences from Left 4 Dead 2, they got something that was a bit further from the original game than what they would have liked. That is a very condensed version of what I'm going to talk about, and now we will dive deeper. To preface getting deeper into this topic, I understand that this is a pretty late topic to talk about. I'm pretty late to the punch. At the time of me creating this video, the infamous Cropcat Back for Blood criticism video is about 5 months old. However, as much as I appreciate that video and love the points it raises, I feel like it nitpicks a lot of details, and for me personally, I feel like it isn't an actual representation of how I, or a lot of Left 4 Dead 2 players, feel about Back for Blood. To introduce myself, my name is Normstorm, and I've been playing Left 4 Dead since the first edition's demo. I was around 12, 13 years old at the time, and I was playing on a 4.3 monitor. So it's been a long time, 580 hours in Left 4 Dead 1, albeit most of it is fort building with cheat codes with friends in survival mode, and 1,210 hours in Left 4 Dead 2, the vast majority of which are grinding expert campaign realism. I don't really touch the PvP aspects of the game, so I won't be talking about them. However, this should hopefully put me in a good enough position to weigh in on why, after all of these years, Left 4 Dead 2 still has me coming back to it, while Back for Blood saw me uninstalling it after completing its final level for the first time. So, the best way to talk about Left 4 Dead's strengths as a game is its simplicity. To better understand where I'm coming from, you have to understand that the Left 4 Dead titles were released in late 2008 and 2009 respectively. And if you were around playing video games, especially on online platforms like Steam at the time, you understand just how different video games and the culture surrounding them were. To put video games on a spectrum, on one end of the spectrum, you have a video game that you purchase one time and that's it. There's no microtransactions, no cosmetics, no loot boxes, no intricate player customization or mods outside of, third-party downloads, and no balance updates or significant bug fixes. The game doesn't need to patch a number of times before it's truly its best version. Infamously put, what you got from your one-time purchase was your complete hamburger. And then on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm exaggerating here, you've got your game and microtransactions that are paid to win. You've got crazy amounts of cosmetics and frequent updates designed to sell you more, loot boxes, balance changes, new releases to the game that are very overpowered and flip the whole game on its head, DLC, power creep, elaborate systems like perks or character classes to really separate different playstyles and strategies. And basically there's a lot more games nowadays that have a lot more going on. So the Left 4 Dead franchise falls more so on the side of the spectrum where the game was released and then that was kind of really it. That was especially more the case for Left 4 Dead 1. But, Left 4 Dead 2 was released and then there was some fun with the rotating mutations, and then the Steam Workshop came out at some point a couple of years later. And then 9 years later, in 2020, we had the Last Stand update, and that's really been about it. So back in the late 2000s of video games, most games were like that. They were more simple in design, more one-time purchase. Updates were becoming a bit more commonplace, but things haven't really gotten competitive at this point yet. The 2010s is when gaming as a whole started to really ramp up a little bit in terms of competitiveness. So titles like League of Legends and Overwatch were rising in popularity, Rainbow Six Siege, where it became more commonplace to see things like perks or classes or, weapon modifications, all these little things where the true test of game designer versus player was coming into play, where people started to explore just how flexible and dynamic we can make a video game. Let's make a video game, but let's balance a lot of smaller details so that we can reward as many different playstyles as possible. And this is all very cool. I'm a huge fan of esports, as a whole. And I've loved my time in League of Legends, Overwatch, CSGO, Valorant, really any of these games where you can really see the limits being pushed on just how competitive we can make a game and how balanced we can make it. What even is possible to implement in such an online competitive environment. And this is where Left 4 Dead's simplicity comes into play because there are no weapon classes or perks or anything like that. It's as simple as just booting up the game and joining a lobby, or a game in process. The only real extra step is if you want to select your character, but that itself doesn't really have ramifications in your gameplay. Either way, the point of this video essay is probably becoming a bit more clear to you now. Left 4 Dead is hailed by its fanbase for its simplicity, and not only is getting into a game quick and easy, but usually you can select any weapon you want, and it's not going to negatively impact your team. 4 shotguns gets you to the end of the campaign, and so does 4 sniper rifles. It's easier to solo multiple special infected at once to bail out your team. You can reliably fire while running backwards. You are pretty free to do a lot of things in Left 4 Dead outside of running away from your teammates, and it will work out well. And the best part is you don't have to think too much about it. You don't really have to worry about what weapons or items your teammates are using unless you really want to. And having a very low skill floor with the high skill ceiling means that while team play is rewarded, there's still a lot of room for that individual skill expression where one player can really haul ass for your team. It makes it easier to get your newer friends into the game and show them the ropes without overloading them with information. You're launching the game, you're picking whatever weapons you want, and you're playing. And you can even switch weapons at any point you want, and it won't feel like a disservice to your team for one reason or another. Even on expert difficulty, you're good to go, and you can play and mess up for as long as you want. And this is where we start to contrast to Back 4 Blood. So with everything I've talked about, what's actually wrong with Back 4 Blood? Well, technically nothing. There isn't anything wrong with Back 4 Blood. You get to kill a lot of zombies. You get to do it in any way you want. There's a lot of fast-paced, really epic fights, and there are a lot of levels to get lost in and explore. Back 4 Blood recaptures one thing perfectly too, and it's that feeling in Left 4 Dead when you're playing the game for the first time, and you're playing and then you fail, and your team respawns in the safe room and you tell your friends, all right guys, this is the one, and then you fail. And then you respawn again and you say, this is the one. And then when you finally do get to the next safe house or rescue vehicle, you've got this amazing feeling of conquering the challenge in front of you. It's a really great high. Unless you're playing on a harder difficulty, in which case you're now being limited to how many continues you have available before you have to go all the way back 1 or 2 chapters. And if you want to have a better chance, you got to have the right classes. You have to pay attention to your deck. You have what tier weapon you have. What modifications do you have on it? And you have to manage the ammo, and you have to communicate with your teammates about it, and you have to make sure that you have, a good balanced team composition that plays to the strengths of your teammates. And that's what makes the game easier in your favor. You need to start to mount up all of these micro victories, and that's before you even get to the part where you're shooting zombies. And the thing is when you're balancing a game to have all these little complexities, it starts to get competitive. And I'm not saying I dislike the rush of a video game making you sweat, but there starts to come a point where it feels like esports level game balancing creeps into your Left 4 Dead. And if you're someone that plays these esports level balanced games, I'm talking your League of Legends, your CSGOs, your Valorants, you know how draining some of these games can be, not just because of all the layers of strategy you're thinking about, but the toxicity that competitiveness brings out in a ton of people. So many rounds in these games end up being a drag before the game even gets to begin, because there's so many assholes who will tear into a teammate for messing up one thing bad early on, or players that are super picky and angsty when it comes to sticking to a meta and trying to get everyone to play accordingly while their teammates are chill, but they're trying to win in their own ways. And so Left 4 Dead by itself already kind of suffers from a bit of a sketchy player base. You can get kicked or team killed for accidentally shooting someone once, or not going back 5% of the level to pick up pills, or whatever. I feel like the last thing it needed was to have a meta. Because, and coming back full circle, what's made people like myself come back to Left 4 Dead after all these years isn't because of shooting zombies in particular. That's fun by itself. But it's nostalgic for me because it's a callback to a time when games were a bit more simple and games weren't hyper competitive or designed to have plenty of little intricacies. I'd like to have a game where I can just launch the game and get in there without, going through a whole draft phase or, a matchmaking based queue, right? The Left 4 Dead 2 player base is not exactly full of children or young teenagers at this point, They're usually older people. Like, for me, I'm 26 years old now, and I know I'm still a young lad, but as I've said, I played this game since I was 12 or 13. For around, or maybe even more than 50% of my life, I've been playing Left 4 Dead. And I played a lot of, and still play more competitive games like Overwatch and League of Legends. But I've reached that point in my life where I'm slowing down a little bit and have other worries and responsibilities in my life that I need to deal with. So when a game gets launched and it's clear that I need to really grind to get into it and learn a lot of aspects about it, it turns me away from it and it's harder to get into. So the reason why a number of Left 4 Dead 2 players aren't necessarily happy about Back 4 Blood is because, and at least for myself, maybe others can relate, but when I heard about a Left 4 Dead 3 or a Left 4 Dead spiritual successor, in that it was Turtle Rock Studios, I had an expectation that I was going to get a game that had a less is more approach to it. But instead, Back 4 Blood does what some people call optimizing the fun out of the game. And I don't think of Left 4 Dead as a zombie killing game. I look at it as something that I want to play when I want to unwind or take things easy for the night, right? Just have fun. Back 4 Blood is Left 4 Dead, but with more ways to make the game stressful for you. It's Left 4 Dead with a lot of extra steps. It's harder to get a friend into a game like Back 4 Blood than it is for Left 4 Dead. And this is the core thing that has bugged me about the game while playing it. And unless I'm projecting, I feel like that is a similar sentiment to a lot of posts that I've seen people make criticizing Back 4 Blood without explicitly saying it. So ultimately, I mean, hopefully by now the point is being made clear. Back 4 Blood by itself is still a completely fine game. I think it's got a lot going on for it, and I think it's great that it is different from Left 4 Dead because it provides an alternative without fully replacing a game. And maybe I'll end up playing it more down the road, but at least just for now, I think that I tried it, I didn't really like it, and ultimately wish that I didn't spend $80 on trying it. But hey, recently, I've seen they're implementing a change that makes it so you can get full access to your deck instead of having to order them, which is a change that makes me have hope that the devs are listening and adjusting as best as their base game allows them to. But for now, just thank you for watching this video. If you're passionate enough in your agreeance or disagreeance in what I've been saying, I'd love to read what you have to say. I've been thinking there are a couple of informative Left 4 Dead 2 videos that I'm going to be making just for the short term. So if listening to me talk more about Left 4 Dead happens to be something you're interested in, you can always subscribe and you'll know when those are out. But either way, I hope you feel like this was a good watch for you, and I'll see you.